So we are going to talk a little bit about Razor. We've been using it in our views. It's pretty hard to not use it in the views. And as we get more into utilizing models, you'll be working with it quite a bit more. Basically, it is markup syntax. It lets you embed server-based code into your web pages. That's why all of the views end with CS, C#, HTML. It's not a programming language. It is a server-side markup language. Okay, so there's a difference. It is not dependent on ASP.NET. You can use it on a lot of different web platforms. So basically what happens is the server is going to read the page. It runs the Razor code first. Okay, it kind of interprets that before it can send the HTML page to the browser. And that kind of makes sense. It kind of has to do that. And if you look at the syntax, it's similar to PHP and classic ASP. All of the code begins with an @, and that's how it distinguishes between HTML and Razor. Okay, so if you're going to do a for loop or an if statement, you just need to put the @. So the @ goes in front of the Razor code. And you can see here that we have a little for loop. And then we've got some HTML with no @. And then to print out the value of I, which is in our for loop, we had to put the @ in. Okay, and then we've got our closing. So it's truly embedded into your HTML. So basically any code that you're keying in that is not HTML, you have to put the @ in front. Okay, so here's kind of how PHP works. Okay, so you can see there are some similarities here. Specific rules. So Razor code blocks have to be enclosed in the @ and then an opening and closing curly brace. And even for one-line statements, if it gets confused, you are going to want to put the curly braces in there. And you can see how it could get confused because you've got it fully embedded into the HTML. Inline expressions, okay? And that would be what this @I is, right? You've got your HTML, and then in between, you have Razor code. That would be an inline expression. That has to start with an @. The code statements end with semicolons. Variables are declared with the keyword var, and that's just like JavaScript. Strings are enclosed with quotes. The code is case sensitive, and as I mentioned, the file has an extension of CS/HTML. Razor can have code expressions or code blocks. And anytime you see the word block, you know you're going to have curly braces. So code blocks are enclosed in curly braces. And you can put the curly braces around expressions as well, especially if you have a lot going on and you think the browser may get confused. Okay, so here are some examples. This would be a single statement block. Okay, and then we have a code expression where we've got some HTML, and in between the opening and closing HTML, we have a little bit of Razor code. And then here we have a multi-statement block. Okay, followed by another code expression. Razor is designed to work with objects. You can use built-in objects that are part of the language, or you can define your own. So this little example is of the date and time object. Okay, so you can see that I created an HTML table. And then I've got basically the first row with the headings has a name and a value. So the first column in the second row says day. That's pretty much straight HTML. And then the second column, it's going to display the result of this razor code. So I'm using the date time object, the now, and the day property. So this indicates it's a day. Now is today's date, and then it's going to display the day. Kind of using the same thing here to get the hour, the minute, and the second. Another thing you can do with Razor is you can do some dynamic features where during runtime, it does a calculation or makes some kind of a selection and displays the result. So this little example is something that you're actually going to be keying in. And you can see we've got a little empty form here where they're going to be entering the hours they worked and their hourly pay. When they hit submit, it's going to end up calculating the gross pay. And then you'll notice that that gets displayed down here. And so our code begins with setting the total message to blank. If they have not submitted the form, nothing displays here. When they submit, is post is going to be true. So if they have filled in the hours and the hourly pay, and they submitted, they posted the form. Okay, so it will be true. And then we're going to use the request object, kind of subscript in, grab the hours, and store those. Then we are converting it into an integer. And if you guys remember from JavaScript, everything that's in a form is string. Okay, and we want to do a calculation, so we have to convert it to a number. Okay, then we're using our request object again, and we are subscripting in with pay. So where is it getting hours and pay from? In server-side scripting, it uses the name attribute. Okay, so you can see name equal hour, name equal pay. It's associating those with the values that are in the form. Okay, so we're subscripting into request with pay, and we're storing the result. And again, we're taking that number and we're converting it into an integer and storing that. Then we declare gross pay, overtime, and regular pay, initializing those to zeros. We check to see if the hours are greater than 40. If they are, we calculate the regular pay, and then we also calculate overtime. Okay, if the hours are not greater than 40, we just do regular pay. And then we calculate the overtime or the gross pay as the regular pay plus the overtime. So if they didn't get overtime, their overtime was set to 0. Okay, and then we kind of format our total message. Once we do that, it will automatically display in the page. So that is how this works. And that is a great example of a dynamic web feature. And you guys are actually going to be coding that in. So as we just saw, you can declare your Razor C# variables using the keyword var, and you don't have to indicate a data type because ASP.NET will figure that out for you. If you want to include a data type, you can. And we just looked at an example using var, and here are some additional examples with varying data types. So you can use the keyword var, but if you're concerned about strongly typed versus weakly typed, you certainly can enter the data type in front of the variable name as well. And the operators that are used in C# are pretty much the same as in Razor. And these are all used in traditional programming. So, you've got your plus, minus, asterisk for multiplication, slash for division. And then if you want to add to an existing result, you've got plus equal, subtract from an existing result, minus equal, and then exclamation equal is not equal. Okay, so all of these operators can be used in Razor. And then you've also got the ampersands for the logical and, the two bars or lines for the logical or. Okay, so same operators as pretty much any other language. In the previous example, you saw how as int is used to actually convert string data into integer. And Razor comes with a lot of different conversion methods. And this little table shows you the conversion methods, plus it also shows you the methods that will test to see if the data you are storing is an integer, or if it's float, or if it is decimal, or if it's date. Okay, so we've got is methods that check to see what the data currently is. And then we have as methods that convert the data.